So every morning is kind of the same ritual every morning. So typically it's me getting up first, me and the cat, I guess. The cat tinkers with me. And I have my own routine where I'm just getting myself ready and get myself ready for the day or whatever. But then when it's time to wake up the kids, I always go into my son Braden's room first. Braden and Malachi share a room. And what I do is I go in there real quietly because I don't want to wake up the 4-year-old. And I go over to my son, and he's got a bed that kind of sits about yay high. And I put my hand on his back, and I kind of rub his back. And I say, "Good morning, Braden. Good morning. How you doing, buddy? How was your night?" or whatever. And Braden typically is facing the wall. Like, he's facing away. And he's typically like this on his belly. And what he'll do is he'll kind of like this. And he's got great long hair. And so that hair's normally like this. When he kind of looks, he'll sit up and he'll kind of squint at me. And then he'll 75% of the time, he gives me a big smile. And he's like, "Hey, good morning, Dad," and it's just like this joy, this ray of sunshine in the morning. And, then I pick him up and I grab him on his blankets and I take him over to the couch and I put him down so he can kind of keep waking up or whatever. But typically it's that nice, bright, big smile, And then I turn and face the door of my daughter's room and I kind of get ready, and what I do is I go in. And the first thing I do is I turn off the fan. It's kind of like waking up a bear. You don't want to surprise them. You just I'm in the room, I turn off the fan and I go over and I do the exact same thing with my daughter as I do my son. I put my hand on her back and I rub her back and say, "Good morning, sweetie. How you doing? It's good to see you." I just kind of very gently just kind of love on her in that way. Exact same message to my daughter as my son. And that response is typically, "That wasn't enough." That's typically her response. Most of the time, it's just like this angry, I don't like life right now, kind of, And then what I do is I pull out my phone, and I have a playlist for her, because she loves music. And I found that she wakes up happier and in a better mood, and it's easier to deal with when I start some music. So typically, I turn on Mandisa, Good Morning from Mandisa, and I put it on the bed, and I get out of there. And I just let her have her moment, okay? Now here's the deal. The message is the same. The message is the same to both of them. How I wake them up exactly the same. The next step is the same. It's time to get dressed, right? That's the first step. The end goal is the same. It's time to we want to get to school on time. It's all the same, right? Why is it so different? On Sunday mornings, you guys come in and the message is the same. You get where I'm going with this? The message is the same. Someone really thought it was funny. Good. The message is the same. The next steps are typically the same. I mean, when Scott preaches, typically, there's kind of like a main idea of what we're trying to get to, and sometimes we'll have different steps, but typically it's all the same, right? Message is the same, the next steps are the same, and the end goal is the same, right? The end goal of becoming a Christ follower and being sold out for Jesus, it's all the same. Why is this so different? Today we're going to look at why. Pull out that piece of paper. I want you to look at it. These things that I asked you to put on this piece of paper can very easily be mistaken as a part of our identity. Okay? There's all kinds of things. Now, I'm not saying that that's what I wasn't trying to trap you or anything, but I'm not saying that that's where you're at. But as you look at the things that you wrote on your paper, as I look at mine, I have nerd, drummer, pastor on there. Those are things that could be mistaken as my identity, but aren't they something that could very easily be taken away from us? I mean, there's all kinds of things here. Why don't you come stand right here? There's all kinds of things that we can use to kind of define ourselves that could become our identity. Appearances is a big one, right? I mean, we live in America. You are what you wear, right? Okay? So we got all kinds of things, or even your weight, okay? So our weight can be something that's kind of a thing that we define ourselves with. Our hair color. Okay, oh, didn't really stick. Here we go. Our hair color, okay? So, some people are automatically like, okay, she's a blonde. Well, that makes sense, okay? So we can be defined by our hair color, okay? Our height, our phones. I mean, guys, the iPhone's no longer as hip as they used to be. You seen that? Okay, I have an iPhone. I'm not as cool as I used to think that I was, okay? My computer, the I'm a Mac stuff, guys, that was brilliant marketing because they connected their computer to your identity. I have a shirt at home that says I'm a Mac. I've made that a part of who I am. Yeah, I'm a Mac user. You're a PC user? Yeah, we got something different. I'm cooler, okay? Parents, how about your spouse? I love walking around with my spouse in public because she's pretty. Okay, but because I know immediately that everyone knows I have a great personality. Friends, we are defined by the people we hang out with. The sports teams that you follow. Guys, we're in Husker Nation. Yeah, and we won last night. See this? This is exactly what I was expecting. You know what? Huskers Husker fans only want complete domination. We don't settle for anything less, do we? Okay? But here's this interesting. I was talking with Scott last night. And you know what I said to him? I said, oh man, I'm so glad they won because it's a lot easier to preach to this audience after they won. You know why? Because some of us had defined ourselves by who we follow. Okay, we're going to keep going. Guys, there's so many things that we could define ourselves with. There's so many things in this life that we have made a part of our identity. And guys, we are mistaken to do this. We are missing the point when we do this. Because how many of these things can easily be taken away from us? That was the point God was trying to get onto Nebuchadnezzar. He said, buddy, you are missing it because you are forming your identity around things that are not going to last. You're missing it. I mean, look at this. Your religion, can't you switch religions? Okay, responsibilities, you could lose that. Okay, your car can be destroyed. Your job, you could lose that. You could change the side of town that you're on. Okay, your parents can lose their reputation, which means they lose yours. You're past the okay, all these things can be taken from us. Guys, I want to know, when are we going to be okay with just being this? Miley Cyrus has been in the news lately, if you haven't noticed. Forbes magazine said that even though she didn't win a thing at those awards, she went out the big winner. Forbes magazine reported on her. She had 300,000 tweets per minute around her performance. That's more than the blackout at the Super Bowl. Okay? If you missed it, you didn't miss much. It was just an overly sexualized shock factor moment. Okay? Now, I don't want to say much more about that. What I'm interested in, what I kind of dug around on this because, I'm a student pastor. I know my teens are watching this. I got to be able to respond as necessary or whatever. But what I was really interested in was I wonder what Billy Ray Cyrus, Daddy, has to say about this. So I got this quote. Look at this. He said, she is still my little girl, and I am still her dad, regardless of how this circus we call show business plays out. I love her unconditionally, and that will never change. Is she not blessed? My question is, what if that's all she cared about? What if all she cared about was the fact that I have an awesome dad who loves me no matter what? I wonder if she cared most about that. If she stopped caring so much about shedding this old identity of Hannah Montana. That's part of the reason why this is happening. Because she's trying to get rid of that old identity of Hannah Montana. She's trying to show the world that she's an adult now. She's making her own decisions. She's not guided by Disney anymore, okay? She's trying to, in that show, a big thing on her mind was she wanted to outdo Lady Gaga, who opened up for those for the VMAs, okay? That she's trying. What if she didn't care about topping the charts? What if she didn't care about any of that stuff and all she cared about was that Daddy, my awesome, awesome Daddy, loves me no matter what? I wonder if her performance would have been different if she didn't care about any of that other stuff. I wonder if her performance would have been different. If all she cared about was the fact that she's got a great dad and she doesn't care about topping the charts or outdoing anyone or shedding this old image of Hannah Montana. And I also wonder how our lives would be different if this is all we cared about. What is at the table? What is it that God is offering? I think the Apostle Paul sums it up really clearly and really well. If you look at the beginning of his letters, there's this common thing that he says at the beginning of his letters. And that means that this is something that is really important to him. He says it in 2 words, grace and peace. What is God offering this world? What is he inviting this world to? He's inviting them to grace and to peace. Not religion, grace and peace. Grace through his son, Jesus Christ. We have grace through Jesus Christ because, guys, guess what? Sin is real. Your sin is real. And some of you are dealing with the consequences of your sin and recognizing it's not a lot of fun. Sin is real and God is holy. Because of those two things, there is a separation between us and God. That you and I are enemies with God because of our sin. Because he's the good guy, we're the bad guy, okay? But Jesus saw what was going on. And he looked at our sin, he looked at our state, and he said, that is not good enough. I do not want to see them deal with the consequences of those sins. So he went to that cross, he died on that cross, he took the penalty of our sin, and through faith, we can have this relationship with God. My sin can be covered. A righteousness that is not my own can be put on me through Jesus Christ. And so grace is offered to us through Jesus Christ by God's hand. And because of that grace, now we can have peace. I can have peace with God. Before, again, we were enemies. But you know what? Jesus calls me brother. Jesus calls me friend. I'm a son of God now, not his enemy anymore. And so I now, through Jesus Christ, can have peace with God. But not just peace with God, peace with other people. Jesus is teaching me how to live, right, guys? Jesus is teaching me how to interact with other people, how to put others before me, how to love people more than myself, how to forgive, how to get rid of my anger, how to get rid of my lust. Like Jesus is giving me peace with the other people around me. But he's not just giving me peace with God and others. He's giving me peace with myself. Guys, when I came to the table, I was broken. I was a mess. I was really in trouble. And I did not like myself. Okay, I really didn't like the person that I was. And I look back on my life with shame. But you know what? Because of Christ, I am a new creation. The old has gone, the new has come. And now I can have peace with myself that that person does not have to be who I am anymore, that I can actually like myself. That is so rare, it seems like, anymore, that people actually like themselves. But it's actually through Christ that I have peace with myself. Guys, when you bring people to the table of God, when you invite them in to take part in what God has to offer for them, you're not inviting them to religion and rules and don't do this, don't do this, do this, do this. You are inviting them to participate with peace and with grace and peace through Christ. That's what we're inviting people to. And do we not live in a world that is in desperate need of grace and peace? Do we not live in a world that needs grace and peace? I don't know what it is about me being a pastor, but people are willing to open up the closets and let me see the skeletons in there. And guys, let me tell you, there is no one out there that's not screwed up in some way. Everyone has got their stuff, but there are some people waking up this morning who are waking up with a huge migraine because they partied themselves to death last night because they're just trying to fulfill something they don't know what to get in their life. Okay, there are people who are waking up with these hangovers, and there's no hope in their life. Do you know there are people out there right now that are watching their family members die, and there's no hope? I see it, the desperation in their eyes. It's like, there's nothing after death. There's nothing to look forward to. Is this all there is, that I live and then I die and that's it? There are people who are watching their loved ones die, and there's no hope. There are people out there who are like hooking up on Craigslist and hooking up through dating websites because they're just looking for some sort of connection, something real, and they can't seem to fill it. So they just fill themselves with meaningless relationships and these things that don't last because they're desperate for something real, something that's meant to be fulfilled with God. We live in a world that is in desperate need of grace and peace, and he has called us as servants to go out. Listen to that verse, verse 24, I believe. Let's read that again. It says, go out to the roads and country lanes and compel them to come in so that my house will be full. Guys, God has called us to go out and compel people to come in so that his house can be full. There's this great verse in Jeremiah 29:11. Jeremiah 29:11 says, for I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a future and a hope and a future. And you know who Jeremiah was? The guy who wrote this? Do you know his story? Jeremiah was the weeping prophet because Jeremiah was there at the time of the downfall of Jerusalem, and he was like this last prophet that was trying to convince them, guys, turn away from your sin, turn back from God. This group is going to come and they're going to destroy you. I mean, he was known as the weeping prophet because he saw this happen. He saw a lot of devastation. He saw a lot of destruction, and the people didn't want to hear from him. He was like this naysayer. They're like, no. They brought prophets around them that told them good news, and they didn't like Jeremiah. Even though he was constantly warning them, this is going to happen. Turn back away from your sin. Turn to God. They even at one point, they threw him in a well. Like they put him in a well where he was like stuck in like really deep mud. And I think about this verse and the fact that Jeremiah, the weeping prophet, wrote, for I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans to give you a hope and future. I just imagine him like sinking in mud in a well, and suddenly he hears, Jeremiah, I know the plans that I have for you. plans to prosper you. And he's like, okay. It's like, I'd love to write this down, God, but I don't have any paper. I guess I'll scratch it in the walls of the well here. It's really weird to think about the fact that Jeremiah was the one that wrote out this verse about hope.